Well, hello everyone. Welcome, and I hope you are all doing well and swell. So far, we're doing great. For today, we gather again so we could have this intense conversation that could benefit all of us. And we are happy to have Guillermo Gosalvez Coll as our guest for today. And with me, also, I'm always happy that uh, Dr. Carl Moore of the podcast Made in Nature and also Roy Colan of Awakening Podcast, and he has many other podcasts. So just check that out, the bio.link podcaster, and then you'll be able to check out Roy Colan's other information. Okay. So anyway, we're happy because nowadays it's kind of always important that we gather together and for conversations that could help us, as I said. And Guillermo, with everything that's happening, locally and globally, and then we know that numbers either in the all mortality cause of death is increasing, then the longevity seems to be like sort of in numbers it's long, the age in years, but then
Mhm.
maybe most of the people are debilitated. So I thought, maybe it would be helpful that we truly learn other sources that could make us healthy. So Guillermo Gonzalez, for a little bit of what I know about him, and hopefully I'll meet him in person someday. I met his uncle, who will be with us again at the Integrative Medical Mission in the Philippines. And so he endorsed to me his nephew, right?
That's
Guillermo
it.
um, uh, graduated at the University of Alicante in, with a degree in biology and psychology from University of Miguel Hernández. And he is the head of the medical department in Quinton Biotech. And he currently manages at least, I think, 6 research projects in different fields, such as immunology, ophthalmology, gastroenterology, and sports medicine. And he has traveled around the world and had conducted talks and training to help professionals in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, and in the Philippines. And I still remember when your uncle was with me in the Philippines, he couldn't join us in the trip that could be like a relaxation trip after the medical mission, because he said, Grace, I have to go to, I think it was Malaysia. I got to go to
Always
Malaysia.
work. Always work.
Right, I was working. And I appreciate the dedication of your family and then Kinton. So as I was mentioning about that, it's like I'm feeling like there's so much we need to learn and we can do to depend on our body so we can be be strong and meet for be like we won't be scared, or we will be courageous in being in any situation, because people are moving, even family members demographics are changing. Sometimes you're living with someone healthy, suddenly the person is not healthy, but how do you protect yourself? So Guillermo, why is it that company decided on focusing on what Renee Quinton discovered in the 19 I think in the early 1900s? So I guess I wanted to say, so there's so many minerals, and it was only in 2014 that I myself fully understood or got so interested that, oh, you've been taking all the other supplements and eating healthy, but what's happening with my minerals? So give us a context of why minerals are extremely important for health and wellness.
Okay. Thank you very much, Grace, for this introduction and this opportunity to speak about the marine therapy. Yeah, we did not invent marine therapy. This was, as you said, as you mentioned before, it was created by a French physiologist called René Quinton. He discovered that cells, especially blood cells, were he did some cell culture experiments, and he discovered that These cells were or seem to be very comfortable in surrounded by isotonic seawater, not hypertonic, of course. And then he did other experiments with animals, with dogs, and he saw that seawater was a very complex solution from the chemical point of view. It was a solution full of minerals, minor, major trace elements, and recently we've been able to determine even vitamins in our seawater, fat soluble and water soluble vitamins. So seawater is not just a complex mixture of minerals, but there are also organic nutrients actually in seawater. Apart from these vitamins I mentioned, there are other organic nutrients like proteins. So there are peptides and amino acids and lipids. So there are also fatty acids in seawater. Not in all seawater, but seawater that is harvested in biological rich areas or biological hotspots, like bloom phytoplankton areas. And as seawater is a complex mixture of nutrients, René Quinton thought that it was interesting to use it as a at the beginning as a mineral supplement, but now we consider it as a micronutrient supplement, not only mineral, but also a micronutrient supplement. And my work consists in helping doctors and researchers to carry out clinical essays, clinical studies to see if seawater, microfiltered seawater, so Quinton seawater is useful for some diseases like dry eye syndrome or atopic dermatitis, and we normally have very good results. Seawater, I must say that seawater is not a panacea. It does not work for everything, but it's a very good mineral supplement, our micronutrient supplement, and it works for a lot of human conditions or even animal conditions. So this is what we work with.
Now, what was that? You want to share that study that Rene Quinton did with in terms of like, I know it became like controversial, but then he was really doing it with that, as a replacement for blood transfusion. And I think that's still important to say, because there are many previews. They have passed away already. Figures or scientists like Rife, right? So they discovered a lot of things, and before you know it, a lot of the discoveries that would have helped us were censored. So tell us about that.
I mean, as far as I know, I don't believe that they were censored. I think that they were forgotten by the community after the Second World War. But marine therapy was very well known in Europe, especially in France, during the first 30 years of the 19th century. Not the 19th, the 20th century. And but as I said, after the Second World War, I think that something happened that I ignore, and I cannot explain because I don't know what really happened. But it became less popular. But I must say that until 1975 or 1978, it was paid by the French Social Security, and so it was accepted and recognized as an efficient tool to treat human diseases by French medical societies. So, but I don't know what really happened. But it was very popular. So what René Quinton did in 1897 in Paris in a lab in the, I don't remember the name. It was Le Collège de France, which still is a very important scientific research building, no, and society. And he carried out an experiment with a dog that he bleeded, and he he treated this. He induced an hemorrhagic shock to this dog, and he did some transfusions of microfiltered or purified isotonic seawater, and so the dog survived it. And so he did other experiments with other animals, and he succeeded. So French doctors with him created what they called marine dispensaries, that were places where they treated people with marine therapy, so with microfiltered seawater. Recently, in 2019 and 2022, we published 2 papers because some researchers, some anesthesiologists, actually, they did these experiments, but with other animals, with swine and ovine models, so with sheep, actually. And they are in PubMed, in high impact factor journals like the journal Anesthesiology. These experiments were very, very interesting because despite the fact of not having hemoglobin, we were able to treat these animals that had hemorrhagic shock that the researchers induced. And so microfiltered isotonic seawater is a crystalloid solution.
Later, when you get a chance, Guillermo, after the show, I would like that link for the PubMed, because I could include it in the post notes, because I think that's very important.
It's very interesting.
Right. And most and my other question before I will introduce to you Dr. Carl Moore, because he also published a book, Nature's Twist and In Water. And anyway, he that's his specialty as well. So I'm going to introduce to you Carl Moore, but later in the course of the conversation with Roy and Carl, maybe you could also address when people are concerned about the pollution that's going on in the water. So then they will say, why depend on the water, on the seawater? Okay. All right, Carl, thank you.
Yeah, Guillermo, what do you mean by crystalloid? I hadn't heard that term before. Is that it's a crystal of water, or it's crystal?
No, crystalloid is a term that I'm not an anesthesiologist, but it seems that anesthesiologists use this term, and pharmacists as well, to speak about solutions that are like Plasmalite is a brand, a very well-known brand, that is a crystalloid solution. It's a solution, a colloidal solution with minerals, with different electrolytes that are used to lead with hypovolemia, for example, and they do not carry blood plasma factors or cells. So because it's not made of human plasma or human blood. So there are polyelectrolytic solutions, as far as you know.
Okay, yeah, because I was a couple of things. My interest is in the way water gets structured. So, in the presence of these microbiological elements and minerals, and I was wondering, was that affecting the water itself? Because my understanding and my focus in my book was about vortex, which is used in the preparation of biodynamic remedies and even homeopathic remedies, where they're writing information into the water. So I know that you get your water from these open ocean gyres or big vortices. For one thing, that tends to concentrate the phytoplankton and the plankton and all that. And then the fish come in because they know they're there. And so there's a collective. So I was wondering if there was something else going on in the water, because the vortex seems to be this very fundamental energy flow, which seems to do unusual things, which I won't go into now. But I was just wondering if I'm sort of branching just from the elements, the biology and all that, and the water, the structure of it. Do you have any kind of insight into that?
Yes, yes, we have.
Okay.
I mean, for example, we have carried out some experiments with a researcher called Jamal Aissa, who is he was I think he did his PhD with who was the name? Who was a Nobel Prize, French Nobel Prize.
Montagnier.
Montagnier, Luc Montagnier.
Yeah.
Because they did something with our with Quinton seawater, because they work in the information, non-biological information, and the capacity of some solutions like water or seawater to carry some biological information, like as you know, they are able to transform a biological information into a I don't know how to call it in English, to be honest, but like some signals that aren't biological or chemical. I'm not a specialist in this area, to be honest. I'm a biologist and I work with microorganisms, so I don't know exactly what they do with that, but it seems that seawater is isotonic seawater, especially is a good material or a good substance to carry some information.
So isotonic, to be clear, means that the seawater is brought to the same level of salinity as the human blood, right?
That's it. So its salinity is 9 grams per liter. All that is above is would be considered as a hypertonic solution. No, René Quinton, he used to work with 2 concentrations, isotonic and hypertonic. He used isotonic seawater because at the beginning marine therapy was administered how can I say that, parenterally? Do you say parenterally? No, in injections.
Okay.
It wasn't. It was oral consumption as well, but mostly injections, subcutaneous, and even
IV.
Usage until 1975, I think, or 1978.
So that brings up another thing I wanted to ask you about, because we have the story of where René Quinton, he substituted, I was going to use the word you were going to use, the dog's blood with isotonic seawater, and it survived, came back to health, and all this. But that would be like almost a full transfusion. Whereas with the Quinton, the little ampules, the little glass ampules, they're smaller. So how can you? How does the dose sort of affect the human body? I mean, if you're just taking a little bit of this isotonic seawater, it's a small amount in comparison to the amount of water and blood within the body. So is part of the therapy is consistency, or maybe you can help with that?
No, he used huge volumes of isotonic microfiltered seawater, not the ampoules. He had also some bottles, crystal bottles, so 1 liter, for example. And I don't remember the volumes for this dog, but there were big volumes of isotonic seawater. The problem of big volumes is that there's small hemodilution of if you administrate a solution without blood cells, you dilute them, and this could be a problem.
I'm sorry, what did you say? What happens to the cells?
So if when he bleed the dog, so there was a loss of blood cells, and especially red blood cells, and so he did not administrate heterologous blood. He did not an heterologous blood transfusion. He used a solution without blood cells, so he diluted the cells of the blood. So it's hemodilution. And in these two papers that I mentioned before, and that I think that Grace will put in the. Okay, so they speak about that. Despite the fact of doing an hemodilution, because it was a comparative study, they induced an hemorrhagic shock to sheep and swines in 2 different experiments. And so they used 2 strategies, an heterologous blood transfusion, so blood transfusion from other animals of the same species, and isotonic Quinton seawater, microfiltered isotonic seawater. And so they did not find, this was the most revolutionary discovery. They did not find differences, statistically relevant differences between these 2 treatments. And if you think about that, this is something, it's amazing, because you are hemodiluting the blood while administrating seawater, isotonic seawater. But I think that the thing, this is what they describe, is that in Quinton's isotonic seawater, you have some nitrogenous components that some endothelial cells can use to produce nitric oxygen, oxidonitrico.
Nitric oxide.
Nitric oxygen that that can increase the how can I say that? It's I don't remember the word. How do you say when you open the capillaries?
It can expand. It becomes the capillary expands more, and it gets dilated.
Vasodilatation. Vasodilatation. I don't know if you use
vasodilation.
Vasodilation. That's it. I must say that I mean, English is not my first language. I speak Spanish and French, and these are a little bit difficult sometimes.
No
But
problem.
so yeah, it's this is the fact that despite the fact of hemodiluting the blood, because of the presence of these nitrogenous element components, it seems that we are able to increase the oxygenation of tissues by the vasodilatation effect.
That's what you're saying there is that with the Quinton water, with a reduced number of blood cells, is comparable. You didn't see any physiological differences with another animal that had a full blood count. I'm just fascinated that if that's the case, that the seawater is doing something with less blood cells. It's almost like if we were to use this water, we wouldn't need as many red blood cells. Am I making any sense there?
But there are no blood cells in seawater. No, but the fact is that
Right. But when it goes into the animal, there's
yes,
going to be. You were saying it's diluted, and there
it
was
is
no.
diluting blood cells that are in the I mean in the blood of the animal.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I mean, when you bleed an animal, when someone is having an hemorrhagic shock, he is or they are losing blood cells and blood factors, but also blood plasma, so water and electrolytes and some organic nutrients that are normally in the blood plasma. So not every time you can have blood to do blood transfusions. So, for example, this is very important in war contexts when you cannot carry with you blood, blood products, blood made of products, and you need some crystalloid solutions like plasmalite or like Quinton plasma. The fact is that this is what René Quinton described in his book in 1897, sorry. The similarity of the chemical composition of isotonic seawater with the blood plasma's composition. They are very similar substances from a chemical point of view. The proportion of major, minor, and even trace elements is very, very similar. And what he described in his book, it's a very deep thought, because he said, well, if life appeared in seawater, and I think that as far as you know, there's consensus in that, actually, in the scientific community, that life appeared in seawater. And seawater, millions of years ago, seawater was an isotonic solution. So life appeared, the first cells appeared or were surrounded by isotonic seawater. And what he said is, well, it seems that multicellular organisms still surround its cells with seawater, like the first unicellular organisms did. So René Quinton also did some experiments with some in vitro experiments, in vitro and ex vivo, with cell culturing techniques, with white blood cells, with red blood cells, and with cells of other tissues. And for more than 15 years, we've been carrying out this kind of cell culture experiments in the University of Alicante, of our town, and with very interesting results. Years ago, we described these researchers, these immunologists described an immunomodulatory activity of isotonic seawater. It seems that some leukocytes, or at least lymphocytes, monocytes, and neutrophils, when they are surrounded by isotonic microfiltered seawater, they can change their behavior. For example, they can form some cell aggregates in cell culture. Or, for example, neutrophils can increase the expression of a behavior that is called the respiratory burst. That is the use of oxygen reactive species to kill microorganisms that have been previously phagocytized or phagocyzed. Don't know. And so this is quite interesting, I think. We tried to do some in vitro or some basic research, but also clinical research to understand why the marine therapy is effective.
It's curious, excuse me, that it's the isotonic and 9 grams per liter, but the ocean water now is what, 3.3 or
3.3.
Yeah. So what happens? How do these biological elements perform in seawater? Is it too salty now? Why didn't they adapt evolutionarily to the way seawater is now? It's the isotonic seawater, as you're saying, when they're in the same salinity as we have now, they respond well, and so that was with the very primitive organisms way back. That seems to be frozen in time. How did they perform in a higher salinity? If they're surrounded by a higher salinity, do they die?
Yes. In fact, we stopped doing research with, cell culturing with hypertonic seawater, because we know that cells that are in a hypertonic medium die by it's an osmotic effect, no?
Okay, yeah.
So, but one thing is to be surrounded by. One thing is adding a hypertonic solution to the cell culture, and another different thing is to consume by oral way hypertonic seawater, because when we drink small volumes, very small volumes of hypertonic seawater, we dilute this hypertonic solution. The interesting thing of hypertonic seawater is that it carries, the concentration of nutrients is higher than isotonic seawater, of course, because to make isotonic seawater, we must dilute isotonic seawater with spring water. So we dilute the nutrients, the minerals, trace elements, etc. So, but for sometimes it's better to use hypertonic seawater, and other times, for example, for years ago, for injections, it was they did that with isotonic seawater.
Okay, I hadn't. Yeah, there's so many other factors, but the osmotic one, higher concentrations, it'll push things in one direction more. It's also interesting that our blood and seawater is the same specific gravity. I find that interesting too. But I have just a question here. When I was reading one of the documents that Grace sent me regarding Quinton water, is the plasma is a living fluid produced by dense fields of zooplankton as they consume smaller phytoplankton. what are these dense fields? I was thinking, well, if the zooplankton are eating the phytoplankton, well, they're going to, leave some of their excrement but you're talking about dense fields. Is this, it's a living fluid?
Dense fields.
Yeah. Have I, maybe you haven't seen this article in a while, or maybe I'm catching you off guard. Yeah. I was just wondering, yeah. It's a living fluid. Okay, I probably answered my question. I was probably reading it wrong there. I was thinking in terms of electromagnetic fields, but you're just talking like fields, space. Yeah, okay.
I mean, and some people are more interested. Many people are more interested in the electromagnetic or energetic content of seawater than the chemical one. I'm more into, because of my background and the things I used to read, the things I read, I tend to be more interested in the chemical side, or the nutritional and the chemical, the biological aspects of seawater. But there's a lot of people doing research, carrying out this research about the energetic properties of seawater.
Yeah, because I was sort of thinking, I know that because seawater is more conductive than pure water.
Sure.
And like sharks, they use their I forget what they're called. Yeah, their sensors to pick up these subtle electromagnetic fields, and eels and all this. So maybe I just got distracted with the word field there. But yeah, there's all that as well.
And seawater is full of DNA and genetic information. It's full of genomes and even small genes that come from cells, and that after cell lysis, so this DNA has been released, and I think that this is a trend. It's like a fashion in microbiology, actually. They are doing a lot of how's the name of metagenomic studies of with samples of seawater, and they are discovering a lot of new genomes and new species. So it seems that in seawater, life is appearing constantly. New life, new species. It's very difficult to study seawater and what really happens in seawater.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's a huge subject. I suppose, in my thinking, I sort of see. I wonder sometimes, taking on the more energy aspect of seawater, is when you have these vortex. And I know, like in homeopathy and biodynamics, the water becomes potentized, becomes energized, and it takes in the information of whatever is present in the water. So I was wondering, with all this DNA and all these proteins and all this wonderful stuff in the ocean, when it goes into this spiral, is it also potentizing that seawater? Mm-hmm. And that maybe also makes this water quite special.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with this idea. And in fact, it wasn't my idea, but because this was I think that it was René Quinton's idea. He tried to maintain this, let's say this this kind of vortex with the ampoules, because it's a double point ampoule. So the same way we do with old wines. So if you see a bottle of wine, a very old wine, you have like a reverse ampoule. So if you see at the bottom of the bottle, there's like a
Yeah,
like that.
it's kind of like almost an egg shape. It's what do they call amphora? Amphora.
Yes, and this is what Francisco in his presentation he speaks about that. So yeah, Romans try to maintain this form. It seems that it preserves the energetic properties of seawater,
Yeah.
wine, or even oil.
Yeah, because they found shipwrecks with amphorae from Roman times and with wine in them, and the wine is still good.
Still good. Yes.
Yeah, so wow. So that was just an aspect I just wanted to run by you there. Uh, I'm doing a lot of talking here, guys.
I'll jump in there, so Carl. So
go ahead.
what you haven't done, what you haven't done is kind of maybe tell the listeners how you know where to find the water and also the whole process of sterilizing it.
Okay, so well, there's a funny thing in our lab. It's that our laboratory where we manufacture our products. It's a very big laboratory, and it's there's a distance of almost 16 kilometers from the Mediterranean coast. It's very close to the Mediterranean coast, but we do not harvest seawater in the Mediterranean Sea. We do more than 600 kilometers to go to the north of Spain, of the north of the Iberian Peninsula, in a place called the Gulf of Biscay. So it's a gulf that is surrounded by Spain and France. Okay, and so we have some boats that go to the they do some 10 miles, almost 10 miles or more, and they harvest seawater in, as I said, in plankton blooms, and between 10 and 30 meters deep. And so water is harvested in these areas because phytoplankton microorganisms act as bioindicators. With their presence, they are telling us which areas of the ocean are richer in nutrients and have the highest quality. So harvesting the seawater between 10 and 30 meters, we avoid some substances that are in the surface of seawater, in the shallow seawater. And so this raw material is received by the laboratory in Alicante, in a city very, as I said, very, very close to the Mediterranean Sea.
And sorry to interject, because you said that the 10 meters down, so that means it wouldn't have the microplastics that are kind of found at the higher level.
Microplastics and some, I don't know if you've had this experience of doing some free diving and watching the surface of seawater. Some like oil in some places. There are some like kind of oil, so we avoid that pollutants that are in the surface of seawater, and but we don't harvest deep sea water, because in deep sea water you're not going to find phytoplankton organisms, because they realize photosynthesis, so they need light. So Between 10 and 30 meters deep is the perfect deep. So this raw material is received by the laboratory, and we do a double cold microfiltration. We do not heat seawater because it has been previously described that when you heat seawater, first you can alter the structure of some organic molecules, of some organic nutrients like proteins or some vitamins that can be denaturized or denaturalized. So they lose the biological function. And but there's another reason. When you heat seawater, you can lead to the production of oxygen reactive species that can damage cells of some tissues, the mucosa especially. So we avoid using high temperatures to sterilize the raw material. We use a double cold microfiltration. Double cold microfiltration do not eliminate all the pollutants. For example, we know that some microplastics, heavy metals, even radioactive elements can pass through the pores of 0.22 microns filters. So the only way we have to be sure that these pollutants aren't present in the final product is to analyze it. So we do several microbiological endotoxin analysis, radioactivity analysis, heavy metals analysis, fertilizers analysis, etc., microplastics, etc. We do this analysis with the raw material and with the final product for each lot. So, of course, these processes increase the cost, the prices of the product because they are quite expensive. But it's the only way to be sure that what we are going to administrate to the people that wants to use what doctors are going to administrate is a safe product. There's a current. There's I mean, no, it's not a current, but some people, especially in South America and in Spain years ago, they used to do that. Some people drink seawater directly from the sea. They take seawater and drink it, and they are like people that are passionate by marine therapy, and but why they do ignore maybe, or what they do maybe ignore, is that in seawater, in marine environments are full of microorganisms. I mean, I think that it is one of the richest environments for more diverse and richer environments for microorganisms. And in seawater, you can find autochthonous microorganisms. So microorganisms that are from seawater, like some Vibrio species, bacteria, or Pelagibacter ubique, that is another one. But non-marine microorganisms can be found in seawater, like E. coli is very common. E. coli, or even some enteric bacteria can be found in seawater. So we must remove that, of course.
Is the salt different at that level, and is that element stayed there with the salt?
Do you mean after and before microfiltration, or?
Yeah.
Well, when we did this analysis with the university in Spain, we did this analysis to determine chemical elements and organic nutrients, especially for vitamins. We did because they are bigger. We did this analysis before and after microfiltration, so with the raw material and with the final product, and there's a small loss of vitamins, but it's very small. They are small molecules, so they can pass through the pores of the filters. But it seems that some are retained, stay in the filters, interact with some components of the filters, or we do not know. But the fact is that there's a small loss of vitamins, and especially organic nutrients that are bigger than chemical elements. There's no loss of, or not important loss of iron or calcium or manganese or zinc, because we are speaking about atoms, elements.
We haven't kind of touched on the different benefits of this, but what I wanted, because Grace held up the glass thing, because it's great that it's not in plastic, the little sachets that you've got and stuff like that, it's in the glass thing. But like, for those that might be concerned, is there a possibility when you break that off to take it, that there's no little particles of glass that can, how is that designed that you're not actually affected by the glass?
I mean, are you asking me if with the glass ampoules there's a risk of that one, of ingesting a small pieces of glass?
Yeah.
Well, if you have a good technique, no. I mean, there's with a pack, with a box, in the box of Quinton product, of the ampoules, you have something special to do a full rupture of the glass. I mean, if you do it with your fingers, maybe, but if you do and we recommend to put the content in a normal, here, for example, and drink it, not directly. So okay. I mean, we haven't received emails of people saying, "Hey, look, I had this problem, and it's not something that happened yet." So I suppose that it's not there's no big risk of that.
Okay, perfect. So you might let people know the benefits of the products, because I know that you've got nasal spray for the eyes and everything. Just what things it can help, because I mean, I don't think we've discussed this yet. So
sure.
It's like, for those listening,
it's a very interesting question. Well, so yeah, we focus on the ampoules, so oral consumption of our seawater, but we designed other products, sprays like the. Is this probably because we have
the sachet?
The sachet. Yeah, we created the sachet at the beginning for at the bottom. The sachet
it looks like Grace is a shop there.
Yeah,
it's my day today.
Yeah, sachets are very useful for people that do sport, because let's imagine someone that's in a triathlon and that is running, etc. It's not, or even in bicycling, it's not a good moment to break some glasses of some ampoules of seawater. So this is the main reason why we created the sachet, because it's an alternative. But I think that the best way to preserve the quality of our seawater is the glass, definitely. But some people prefer the sachet. So apart from that, we have an eye spray. That is, I want to say that it's my favorite product because we have carried out several research that are published. If you put in PubMed or Google Scholar, seawater, dry eye syndrome, etc., there are several articles speaking about that. We published 2 papers in very well-known ophthalmology journals, because we did some comparative studies with so people with dry eye syndrome and 2 treatments. The conventional artificial tears, I don't remember, I think it was Viscofresh tears, the most important in the market, at least in Europe, and the isotonic Quinton's ocular spray or eye spray. And we compared the 2 treatments. And well, I must say that, and you can read it in the article, the paper, the Quinton eye spray was much more effective than the standardized treatment. That is, it's a symptomatic treatment. You cannot treat the cause, the origins of dry eye syndrome, but you need to treat the symptoms. And so the Quinton spray was superior than the standardized treatment. So these artificial tears. And in fact, what we measured was some clinical parameters, but also biochemical. And what we saw is that with our seawater, we were able to reduce the concentration of the levels, not the concentration, the levels of interleukin 1 beta and interleukin 6 that are overexpressed in people with in the tears of people with dry eye syndrome. They are pro-inflammatory molecules. And in another paper, we describe how we reduce a molecule called MMP9 or metalloproteinase 9. That is also a pro-inflammatory molecule that is reduced with the Quinton eye spray. So it seems that there's an anti-inflammatory effect of the spray. So apart of hydrating and removing some mechanically some pro-inflammatory molecules, we can reduce. I mean, there's, apart from this mechanical and osmotic effect, there's also it seems that there's also a let's say a biochemical effect or anti-inflammatory effect. In another paper, we describe it's a clinical trial we made with children with atopic dermatitis, atopic eczema, very young children, I think that from 3 to 15 years old. And we were able to reduce the intensity, the severity of the symptoms. There's a lack, I think that there's a lack of treatments, especially in children with atopic dermatitis. So this was a very good discovery. Both sprays are, both sprays and also some nasal sprays are medical devices. And so we manufacture them for the entire world. So there's people in the Philippines using it, in the US, of course, all Europe, South America, Australia, Africa, Asia. So this is what we work with. So these sprays.
Did I read as well that with arthritis, that it helps with arthritis?
Well, maybe you read that because with this group of immunologists of the University of Alicante, we did some experiments with Treg cells, so T lymphocytes, a subpopulation, the Treg, T regulatory cells, that are the, let's say, it's the subpopulation of T lymphocytes that manage the immune response, and that are responsible of the immune tolerance to our own cells and tissues and factors. So it seems that the proportion of these cells in people with some autoimmune diseases, the proportion of these cells is lower than people that do not have autoimmune diseases. In an in vitro experiment, we described how naive T lymphocytes surrounded by isotonic Quinton seawater were more, how can I say that? We increased the proportion of T naive cells that transform into Treg cells, the one that are responsible of managing the immune response and let's say that avoiding autoimmune diseases. I don't know if this was properly.
No, perfect. Yeah, no. So I think I'll pass it back to the waterman himself, living in Ireland, because he seems to have some. Since he's written the book, to Carol, you might have some more questions.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering. I'd forgotten all about asking those very relevant questions about how do you take it and where does it come from. But as you were talking there, you take it internally, you can take it topologically, and so if someone has a chronic illness, how much of this Quinton water does one take in the ampules? Can you overdose on it?
I don't
is
think
it
so.
too much? Yeah, this sort of thing. So is taking more is better, or is there some guidelines?
Well, I mean, I think with hypertonic Quinton seawater, with the hypertonic solution, we must take care of the volumes we are administrating, because we all know that it's not a good idea to administrate a hypertonic solution in big volumes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's no problem with the isotonic solution. We do not recommend the ingestion of big volumes of isotonic solution, but in the marine dispensaries, they used to give very big amounts of big volumes of isotonic seawater, because it's isotonic. The concentration, the salt concentration, is the same that the blood plasma. So there's no risk from this point of view. On the other hand, there's no we haven't described yet any side effect or contraindication. At the beginning of the marine therapy tradition, it was only administered to pregnant women and newborn and little children, so in risk population. And so I think there's no, with the isotonic one, there's no risk of overdosing someone. Okay. What we do recommend is, depending on what we cannot do recommendations first, because we are a pharmaceutical laboratory, and this is a decision of the doctor or a health specialist. But in our boxes, we put from 10 to 60 milliliters per day. 60 milliliters maximum. Because with this volume, you can, we calculated that you are ingesting the proper quantities of magnesium, sodium, chloride, trace elements, etc. So it's up to 60 milliliters. So 1 to 6 ampoules per day. But, well, what we do is to give the chemical composition to doctors and to health professionals, and they decide, depending on the patient and on its problem, its condition, they are going to give more or less volume of seawater. If they have a patient with big losses of water and electrolytes, so patients with diarrhea and vomiting, I think that they are going to increase the volumes because it's they are going to complement the oral rehydration therapy with Quinton. Because with this, I think it's a very interesting use of isotonic Quinton. Oral rehydration therapy, a complement to oral rehydration therapy, because the conventional solutions, for example, the one that is recommended by the WHO, only carry sodium, chloride. I think that they carry bicarbonate, but I'm not sure, glucose, and potassium, if I'm not wrong. Something like that. It's a very simple composition. With isotonic, with Quinton isotonic, you are giving these elements, and also because there's also bicarbonate in seawater naturally, but you are also giving zinc, copper, calcium, manganese, magnesium, etc., and also some organic nutrients. So it's a very rich solution. We are not claiming to change conventional oral rehydration solutions and give only Quinton isotonic. We are claiming to enrich the conventional oral rehydration solutions with our seawater, because we are giving all these other minerals and nutrients that are not present in oral rehydration solution, conventional oral rehydration solutions.
Yeah,
because
I'm sorry. I see it as it's kind of like, instead of taking a specific, I'm just thinking of the apple. If you want you get the malic acid, but if you take the whole apple, you get everything, and it works together. So more synergistic. So that's the way I'm seeing the Quinton water as being more synergistic, where the other one is more sort of targeted with, difference between a pill and a plant.
Sure.
That sort of thing.
But I think that we tend to, because there are many oral rehydration solutions. The new ones, the modern ones, include zinc, for example, which is a trace element. I think that we are seeing that through diarrhea and through vomiting, we do not lose only sodium, chloride, potassium, and water, but we do lose other nutrients. But we do not replace them with conventional oral rehydration solutions. So I think that there's a lack of comprehension of what we are actually losing through these symptoms. So
yeah, that makes sense, because I hear that there's minerals, and what's more important than minerals is trace elements, and they're very small proportions, but they influence the metabolism very powerfully. So if you're bringing, like in the seawater, all those collective, you have these trace elements and everything else in it. So I just wanted to make that comment. Yeah.
Sure, many enzymatic reactions depend on the presence of some trace elements like zinc and copper, or they also can be structural components of some molecules.
Right.
For example, there's this, I think it's zinc fingers, some that they carry zinc. There's an atom of one or two. No, there's one atom of zinc. Or, for example, some enzymes, some metalloproteins carry some metals, some trace elements on them. There are structural components. So they are cofactors. They are structural components. They are needed by some systems, some organic systems, to communicate each other. I mean, they are important for everything. Even I think that in some new textbooks of immunology, nutrition and immunology, they relate zinc and copper with some needs of white blood cells. For example, zinc is very important for lymphocytes, for example. So it's a very complex topic. What we know about seawater's chemical composition is just the top of the iceberg.
The iceberg. Right,
top of
right.
the iceberg.
Yeah.
If we have had this conversation 5 years ago, I wouldn't be able to speak about vitamins in our seawater. This is something that we just discovered or some years ago. I'm sure that if we analyze some pigments in seawater, like some chlorophylls or some carotenoids, we're going to find them in seawater, because we harvest seawater in places where there are some photosynthetic microorganisms, and when they die, they release these molecules, and they release it into seawater, the microenvironment. So it's a very complex substance. Maybe the reason.
Yeah, Guillermo. Yeah, you're saying it's very complex, but true, very interesting. Carl, I can see what your focus will be in your next book. Let this inspire you, I hope. For Carl,
yeah.
right, Carl?
Yeah.
Say your work is not finished yet in knowing about water, because I want to share a few of the things that a viewer texted me a lot. And first he wanted me to mention that Dr. Joel Wallace, who's past 80 years old already, and he's one of those proponent of speaking about the importance of minerals, although he didn't focus on the seawater, but he just keeps like pumping up his message of minerals, and emphasizing that the land is so depleted that it is impossible that we will have healthy longevity without minerals. And he's a proof he's still alive. His cognition is sharp, and he's still doing a lot of good work for humanity. And of course, he wanted me to share also Roy, he said you're asking a lot of good questions, Roy, because for all the practical applications as well. And I want to share also that I have taught my little ones, my grandchildren, and when I started them to teach them on how to use it and be independent, I had all just the ampule, and yeah, there is a way to open it, and and eventually they themselves, because I want them to be independent. And I just kind of put all this resource next to them. Like, when a family has some cookies or candies, I have this for them. And interesting, because they like the isotonic more. I introduced both of them, and see, the kids, when we don't pollute their body so much and their mind, they're going for the isotonic. And again, for the viewers, just think, especially when you're worried about the sodium, and the first question they will ask, but Grace, I have hypertension. Oh, I'm going into kidney, or they're going for dialysis. So those are good questions. And as Guillermo said, we don't recommend, but you can speak with your practitioners. But but when we were keep doing it as part of the medical mission in the Philippines, and I know Quinton has been distributing, is donating a lot of that, and it comes in the ampule. Now I understand, Guillermo, why you're not sending any sachet in the Philippines, because of keeping the integrity of it is better in the ampules. And I just thought that the culture in the Philippines and in Asia, they like little things. They like little things to take. It seems like it's encouraging people more. You see this in well products or in spa. I've seen it, like, whoa, that product is familiar to me. So, and I like this conversation, not because I want to show people that, hey, you could get it from me. No, because I truly believe that if we continue to study more of health, it's a continuing journey. It continues and it continues. But if you can please emphasize again the difference between the hypertonic and the isotonic. You mentioned it's 0.9 and the other one is 0.3. And people again have to remember, when you go to the hospital, what is the first thing that they give and do for you? They put an IV, and it's 0.9%. Okay, so there was a lot of we were ill-informed about many things, and particularly about the salt. And why, for me, getting it from a whole environment is better than isolating it. So, Carl, I'm also interested in water with the structure, the energy, everything about the seawater just makes so much sense. So I just want to encourage people to just keep studying about it and put it in your practice. And when Carl mentioned about the apple cider or apple juice, so some of us, I'm around people who use Quinton a lot. So some of us put it in our filtered water and put an ampule, or right in the glass or in your juice. So if you want to use that, and if you're tired, if you're a little off, it's kind of like, it's good feeling. So when we went hiking in St. Kitts, a few of us brought Quinton sachet. So all of us made it. There were like 20 something of us, and from maybe like an under 20 years old, 19 years old, to almost 80 years old. We made it all the way to one of the volcanoes in St. Kitts. And we made sure that we hydrate ourselves, but we added that Quinton to keep us more together and do the work together. So anyway, I just thought I wanted to share all of that. And let's see what else. So if you want to speak just a little bit more, and then you want to wrap it up, or unless other people. But I really encourage Carl to start formulating the kind of book that he will do in the next one. Okay.
Okay, Grace.
Hey, I'm pretty good in knowing the talent of someone. Okay. So, and so Guillermo, just a little bit more on that, the difference between hyper and iso. Okay. Yeah, because I know you keep saying isotonic is better, but I know people who, they really just love. I do the hypertonic big bottle First, it's economical to get the bottle, but it's just a shot. And I start my day with it and I end my day with it. So I know my it's like I bookend one little shot. But the kids, trust me, the children with me, feel free. Isotonic, sure. It's
Yeah, well, I mean, isotonic is, I think, is a term that we use in physiology, chemistry, but especially in physiology. Is a solution that has a salt concentration of 0.9% or 9 grams per liter. All that is above is considered as a hypertonic solution. So 2.1%, 3.3%, 10% is considered hypertonic. All that is below is hypotonic. Okay, so we used to recommend we recommend hypertonic ampoules, especially when for people that are suffering from chronic fatigue and people that need to boost their energy. We know that all these chemical elements, all these minerals are involved in different enzymatic reactions, and especially in those that are responsible of the production of energy in the cells. As it is the solution with the highest concentration of these cofactors and these nutrients, we recommend this one for that. So chronic fatigue, asthenia, etc. And of course, any kind of situation or context where mineral supplementation is justified or recommended. On the other hand, the isotonic seawater is more recommended in cases of digestive diseases, especially in those that or when we have the presence of vomiting and diarrhea. Also, in vomiting and diarrhea caused by some some medical treatments that have because vomiting and diarrhea are very common side effects of some medical treatments. So in these cases, we also have a loss of water, electrolytes, but also trace elements and other micronutrients. So this is a good moment to use isotonic Quinton that is full of these nutrients and trace elements. These are the main uses of isotonic and hypertonic Quinton solutions.
And a comment from the Philippines says that they're grateful that Quinton ampoules are available in the Philippines. Although for travel purposes, they do like it would have been nice to have the sachets because they are not worried about if it breaks or not. So since I'm going home there in February, so I usually bring the sachet so for our travel. But other than that, the ampoules is very helpful. And for us, and I just want to encourage again for people who, especially who live along the coast, because I grew up in the Philippines. That's why this topic is very close to my heart. I remember whenever you have any skin sores problems, even for achy parts of your body, if our elders will always kind of like send us to the ocean, go and take, I don't know now because some of the parts of where I grew up is also a lot of dumping areas. But nevertheless, the ocean is so vast. It's still so good to spend your time in the ocean when you can.
Look,
any last message?
I just want to say that yeah, in Europe, at least in Europe, and I say Europe because it's the continent I where I grew up and that I know. But there's a very long tradition of thalassotherapy and seawater baths. It was and still be very recommended for many diseases. And in fact, because I'm the person in charge of research and clinical essays in the lab, so I went to a city, to Valencia in Alicante, to meet an ophthalmologist, a top ophthalmologist in Spain and Europe, Dr. Diaz Llopis, Manuel Diaz Llopis, which is he is the second ophthalmologist with the highest number of publications of ophthalmology in Spain. So there's a Dr. Aliot, that is the top one, and he's the top two. And I met him and I told him, look, we want to carry out, we want to do a clinical essay in people with dry eye syndrome and conjunctivitis. And he told me, okay, what is your product? And I told him, well, it's microfiltered seawater. It's a special seawater that has followed a process called the Advanced Quinton Protocol, etc. And he told me, look, it is the first time I listen about this use of seawater, but I always recommend my patients with allergic conjunctivitis to go to the sea and just swim, because it's a tradition for dermatologists and ophthalmologists. Dermatologists for skin conditions like atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, etc., and ophthalmologists, especially with blepharitis and allergic conjunctivitis. The fact is that he told me, I mean, it makes sense for me. It is the first time I heard about medical products, pharmaceutical products made of seawater, but I always recommended that. And this is something that I recommended. My teachers at the university recommended me. It's a tradition, at least in the places where we have in coastal cities and coastal places. We have the sea along the coast of our cities. So, but I also have to say that current seawater, coastal seawater, in some places aren't the. I mean, I think that with current seawater, it is not a good idea. You must go to very specific areas to swim, as areas that lack of these pollutants, lack of heavy metals, places that are not contaminated by human activity. I mean, for example, I cannot recommend people to with the therapeutic aim to go to the port of Barcelona and swim, because it's not a good idea. It's not a clean place to take advantage of the benefits of seawater. But this is something that we did for several years. I mean, I agree with that, Grace. It's a tradition.
Well, yes. So anyway, we are gifted with a lot of wisdom, each of us. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's not by accident. It is truly meant for you to hear and to listen and to feel what's good for you. So, and you can always get in touch with me if you have any more question, or with Roy, or with Carl. okay, we will respond to you, and for Guillermo as well. And it will be that www.quinton.bio, okay? And we do thank him for all the time and effort and everything that they're doing. And for me, I want to make sure that you all know that you could always check our different platforms in BitChute, in all the other, and Rumble, and all audio platforms. And hey, I want to announce that I have a new website. That's quantumnurseeternalhealth.com. Now, there's no Quinton there yet, but there's other things there, especially for women's face, skin health, and serum. I do need to make this website be known, because that's we need some support to help the cost of this production. So let me just be practical with that. But we appreciate your time, to our guests and to everyone, and like, share, and support in every way possible. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.